Welcome to a special Friday edition of the Playa Unplugged. I am Benny Scala, a.k.a. The Playa. The Playa. Perhaps you caught my last adult film. You left your lipstick on my dipstick. So on our previous two episodes, we have covered sex and inspiration. Now tonight, we're going to talk about something very near and dear to me. And no, it's not Bolivian hookers. My esteemed guests and I are going to talk about the great American pastime, baseball. And speaking of my esteemed guests, we have a couple of guys who, although they are known for other things, are diehard old-school baseball fans. First, my brother from the Monty and the Pharaoh channel, the one and only Jimmy Pharaoh. Besides being a great musician, he and Mike Monty have created a huge catalog of five-star interviews. Jimmy, welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much, player. Appreciate being here, talking a little baseball. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And my other guest was a professional wrestler extraordinaire. He won between 19 and 700 titles. We haven't quite figured it out. It's one or the other during his illustrious career. And then he moved on to an equally stellar career as a trainer for Ohio Valley Wrestling. Now, if that's not enough, he is the current holder of the Dan and Benny F-bomb record, dropping an incredible 206 in a 60-minute period. That's been verified by Price, Ernst & Young. And that, to me, that's about as unbeatable as Walter Johnson's 110 shutouts, being we're talking baseball. So I'm talking about, of course, the great Rip Rogers. Rip, how are you doing?
Well, today on my podcast, somebody said something about Harmon Killebrew. I said, yeah, he had 573 fucking home runs. So they fucking Googled it, and they said, how do you know that? I said, well, I know all kinds of shit that don't make me no fucking money.
Right ahead of him is Frank Robinson with 586, right?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, welcome to the Play Unplugged. Let's talk some baseball. So the first topic I wanted to cover, this might take the whole show, is the assimilation of the Negro League statistics into MLB. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Jimmy's shaking his head, so let's go with Jimmy first.
All right. Well, there's a whole bunch of different layers you got to peel away at, first of all, when it comes to this debate, all right? First off, here's my disclaimer. Whether people like it or not, I'll take a page out of Rip Rogers. Too fucking bad. This is appeasement, all right? This is appeasement. The records kept over the years during the Negro Leagues, which I think technically started around 1859 and, of course, ran through until Jackie broke the color barrier. The records kept are very, very loose. They're not reliable. I wouldn't really regard them as, a tight-knit, well-kept ship at all. The Negro League players, while there may have been one or possibly two on a roster that would have been Major League ball players, there is no doubt in my mind about that. Obviously, Josh Gibson could have been a great Major League ball player. Satchel Paige proved that he was a great Major League ball player. But most of the teams, maybe one, maybe two, okay? What most people don't know is Babe Ruth was a little bit ahead of his time. He used to take touring teams in the offseason, and this would irk the Yankees, by the way, that he would do this. But he would take touring teams and play the Negro League teams. Babe Ruth's batting average was .455. His lifetime average in the major leagues was .342.
Correct.
Outside of Satchel Paige and perhaps one or two other pitchers, I think that they would have been basically batting practice fodder for Honus Wagner and Ty Cobb and Rogers Hornsby and Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and et cetera, et cetera. While there was some quality in those leagues, to equate it on an equal level with Major League Baseball is a slap in the face to the Japanese players. Absolute slap in the face, because the Japanese records are much more reliable. Sadahara O has so many home runs. We've seen Ichiro come over here. We've seen Matsui come over here. We're now seeing Otani come over here. So if you're going to do something like this, which I don't agree with anyway, if you want to recognize the records, that's one thing. But to integrate them, that's a whole nother story, and I don't agree with that at all.
That's a good point, Jimmy, about the Japanese league, and people don't know that the Japanese players were not allowed into the major leagues until, I think, 1964. There was a guy named, I think, Masanori Murakami, relief pitcher for the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
First. So I mean, you're right. Why not? Why stop at the Negro leagues? Why not how about the Mexican leagues? I mean, why stop? Why stop there? And those stats are a lot more credible, especially the Japanese.
You see all the talent that's coming out of the Dominican Republic over the years. I mean, why don't we just do that too?
Right.
Rip, what is your take on all of this? Should this be official? What's going on here?
Well, the thing about it is, this is the fucking time when you can't say fuck all about anything because you might fucking piss somebody off or whatever. We all fucking know that. But look at it this way: the Negro Leagues had some great players.
Absolutely.
Not as many that would be in the major leagues, but those special few would have been stars anywhere. They were just special people. And as far as the Japanese ball players, it's the same thing. A certain percentage would have been great to have in the major leagues.
No, I totally agree. So I did a little, we lost Rip. Temporarily, hopefully.
All right, let's see if he pops back.
He'll pop back up. Jimmy, I did some analysis, and so I looked at slugging percentage. I was going to say that now that Rip's not here, you know how Vince Russo has the bro meter?
Yeah.
We need the fuck meter for Rip Rogers, don't we?
Yeah, I think we do, because anybody who can curse more than me has a special gift.
Yeah.
I'm fairly impressed with that right off the bat.
So slugging, historically, I had it memorized. It was Ruth, Williams, Garrick, and double X, Jimmy Fox. Now it's Ruth, Williams, Garrick, Mule Suttles, Turkey Stearns, Oscar Charleston, and Jimmy Fox. But I wasn't satisfied. I looked at this guy, Mule Suttles, who I had never heard of until like 2 days ago. He played and I just took a random season. Actually 1926, because his slugging percentage was .877, which I think was higher than even Ruth's best year, right? I think Ruth.
Okay.
Yeah. So in 1926, he played for the St. Louis Stars. They went 61-35, so 96 games, and he actually did play in 89 of the games. So that's legit. But so the first place team was the Kansas City Monarchs, who played 82 games. You have all the way down to a team called the Dayton Marcos, were 6-36. They played 42 games. So how does that even work? And what I did was I clicked on the roster of the Dayton Marcos, and they had guys. They had like a name like Smith with a question mark, or like even one was like a nickname, some nickname with a question mark, and it was like a wrestler, parts unknown, weight unknown.
Right.
Date of birth unknown, bats unknown, throws unknown. So if they couldn't even, if they didn't even know a guy's name, how can we know that those stats are right?
Well, it's just building off what I said right at the beginning. The records were kept very loosely and very poorly. So I don't see how. Look, you want to recognize their stats and put certain guys from the Negro Leagues in the Hall of Fame. I don't have a qualm with that. I really don't. But when you start putting it on the same level as Major League Baseball, you're just appeasing. That's all you're really doing. I don't see any point in any of it. The NBA, when they absorbed the ABA, did not officially count the ABA stats towards the NBA stats and just combine them all. But they did recognize great ABA players for their accomplishments in the ABA, and some guys wound up in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
That's how you should be doing things. You shouldn't be going, integrating everything and going, okay, it's all the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's been well documented that the pitching in the Negro Leagues was horrendous for the most part. There was a few good. I think the score of the very first Negro League game was 53-43. That doesn't even sound like slow pitch underhand softball to me. I mean, I've never witnessed even a slow pitch game end 53-43. I mean,
about three quarters of basketball, right?
Right. Well, I mean, what are we doing here? Although nowadays it might be a quarter with the defense they don't play. But
I mean, everybody can name Satchel Paige as a great Negro League pitcher. I can't name any other ones. And I guarantee you that all the Negro League players that got inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, I bet that the proportion of pitchers to position players is like minute. It might be Page and maybe one more guy where, the composition of the Major League Hall of Fame, the pitchers, they're probably 40-50%, would you say?
Right.
Or close.
Right. I mean, how do you really think that Smith, question mark, would have fared against, I don't know, Christy Mathewson, Walter Johnson, Wade Hoyt, Herb Pennock. I mean, Carl Hubbell struck out 4 Hall of Famers in a row, didn't he, at the All-Star game? I mean, how is Smith, question mark, doing against those guys?
I mean, we know that Josh Gibson would have made any major league roster, and he would have been, a Hall of Famer. And but Josh Gibson would not have hit 400 facing a steady diet of, like you said, Christy Mathewson, Walter Johnson, Carl Hubbell, Wade Hoyt, Pennock, all those guys, Lefty Grove. There's no way.
Dizzy Dean.
Right.
The Gas House Gang. You know what would happen if the Gas House Gang played those teams? They would have destroyed those teams.
Absolutely.
And that's what gets lost in all of this. It was look, circumstances. The Negro Leagues were forced into circumstances due to segregation, and they did what they could to make competitive leagues. But just like every other background, I mean, there's more success in some backgrounds than others. For some reason, Italians were running wild back in the day. I don't see that so much now. I don't know if you do. Maybe you do.
No, really, no.
It's weird how that works. The Dominicans have become, if you're from the Dominican Republic and you're a pitcher, geez, everybody wants to talk to you, right? I mean, everything has changed over the years, but the Negro Leagues were a lesser league, not because of the color of the skin, because of the quality of the overall players. And that's why Babe Ruth's teams used to house them. They would destroy them. It wasn't even close. Babe Ruth hit for 113 points higher on his average. I mean, what does that tell you? It tells you you're going to have 53 to 43. The pitching was terrible.
Well, and keep in mind that the average major leaguer, I think I was talking to you about Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra got signed by the Yankees for like $500, and he got sent to a Class D league. I think it might have been Norfolk, Virginia.
Right.
And then he worked his way up. I think the Newark Bears were their AAA team. But, it took him, 4 years maybe to get to the Yankees. Right. By the time he gets to the Yankees, he's a polished ball player. He's been coached for 4 years. He's gradually played against better players, and so he was ready for the major leagues. But unless I'm wrong, and somebody can correct me in the chat room, I don't know that there was a Negro League farm system. You showed up for a tryout. You were good enough. Now you're in the major, the Negro National League, but you're not. Unless you're a Josh Gibson, you're not a polished ball player.
No,
you're not. You're a raw talent.
Right. I mean, look what Phil Rizzuto had to go through. I'm sure that you know the story of Phil Rizzuto, but not many do. He tried out for the Brooklyn Dodgers first. He was embarrassed and told he was too small, too short, couldn't play the position, and to take up something else like maybe, delivering mail or something. He winds up going to the Yankees and saying, well, do I have a chance? And, of course, he was given that chance, and you see what happened with Phil Rizzuto. To make the major leagues was never an easy thing back in the day or today. It was not easy. Either you were really, truly the best of the best. And, people forget how many teams were around back then, Benny. You could tell
20.
me.
20, right?
I think there were even less than that. At one point, my father he told me during World War II, and he drew it up, there might have been 12 to 16. There was not that many at all.
No.
So to break into the major leagues, you had to be the absolute best of the best of the best.
You had to be one of the 500 best ball players. Even say there was 30 guys in a major league roster. It takes 16 times 30, 480. So you had to be one of the best 480 ball players
in the entire
country to even get a sniff at a major league team.
Right. Right. It was very hard to be a Major League Baseball player. And again, though, like you said, Josh Gibson would have been able to do it.
Satchel would have broken.
Satchel obviously did it, and it was still great at a later age, which is Satchel Paige is an amazing story. But you know what else doesn't get talked about? Jackie Robinson, of course, was the first black player to cross the line and to break the segregation. But Jackie Robinson was not just the right person, because that's said often, and it's true.
Right.
Jackie Robinson was the right kind of baseball player. Because think about it. If Josh Gibson came in, look, the pressure was enormous. We don't know who Josh Gibson was as a man and stuff. His job and what he was known for was to hit home runs. What if he had some problems at the beginning trying to launch home runs? What if he was struggling? What if the media jumped on him because he was surly with the media? We don't know what kind of person he was, but we do know what kind of hitter he was. Jackie Robinson was a baseball player. He could hit. He could hit for average. He could run. He could field. He could throw. He was kind of like a Ty Cobb without the dirty aspect. He was a gentleman.
Right.
He played the game rough and hard, but he was a gentleman. He was the perfect player, not just person, for that time period to break that barrier. Satchel Paige got the chance at what, 42? Satchel, to me, is a more amazing story.
Yeah, he was a 42-year-old rookie for the St. Louis Browns.
He comes in at 42 and puts, what, like 7 or 8 years together? Somehow he pitches till he's 49 or 50 years old. It was unbelievable.
Then in 1965, at the age of 59,
here you go.
Comes in and pitches 3 innings of shutout baseball at 59 years old.
Right. No, that's obviously a guy who probably back in the day would have won 300 games easily.
Right.
Easily. But you can't name a whole bunch of other Satchel Pages. We just rattled off Johnson and Mathewson and Hoyt and Pennock and you know, Hubble and Lefty Gomez. My God, Red Ruffing. Oh my God, you know. The pitching in the major leagues was superior. You know, I still get in arguments with young kids today who watch baseball, and they don't think that the old timers would do anything today. That the pitchers didn't throw hard back in the day. They must have just been lobbing it over the plate because these numbers are so gaudy. Nonsense. We have not evolved as a race in the last 100 years so much that the average man is 7 feet tall and weighs 280.
Right.
We have not. So it was grown men.
900 pounds, right?
Yeah, it was grown men throwing the ball as hard as they could, but you know, and if their shoulder was sore, they iced it and pitched the next time anyway.
That's a whole nother story. You know, pitching on the 4th day. You know, all complete games. Actually, one of the other subjects I have is best pitching season of all time. Maybe we'll do that next. But you know, I wanted to. Turkey Stearns won the 1931 Negro National League batting title, 376 average, played 38 games.
Right.
And the team had played 58 games, 156 plate appearances. Now, he gets credit for a batting title, which I think is very unfair because how many guys in the major leagues got called up? And I have this one guy, Bob Hazel, Hurricane Hazel. He was, you know, he really truly was more like a comet, but got called up in 1957 with the Milwaukee Braves. Had the same number, I think, 155 plate appearances, hit 403. Now, should he, you know, fair is fair. If Turkey Stearns gets a batting title with playing 38 games, why shouldn't they, you know, are they going to go back now and say, well, Bob Hazel should have won the 1957 National League batting title?
Yeah, you see what sort of Pandora's box this opens? By the way, it's absolutely ridiculous that people to this day, usually Met fans or Yankee haters, give Paul O'Neill's 359 batting average in 1994, the strike season, where 113 games were played, and he had hundreds of at-bats. You know, people complain about that, and you're going to tell me with a straight face, you know, those same people who want to be correct about things, that a 38-game season is a batting title? A 38-game season doesn't even usually constitute a hot or a cold streak, and if it does, it's called you're in a slump or you're red hot, and there's still over 100 games to go. This is ridiculous, integrating these numbers as official numbers. It's a laughing stock, and whoever in Major League Baseball thinks that this is a good thing obviously doesn't care about baseball history or realize just how hard it was to be a Major League ball player. Again, recognize them, but to call it equal, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Well, you know, here's my thing, Jimmy, because, you know, on Facebook, if you dare make a comment that, like what we just said, you're labeled as a racist, and it has nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with that.
No,
nothing, and nothing. They could have been Martians, and I would have told Mars, right, go form your own league on your own planet. What are you talking about? It's not judged by that. The Major League Baseball Hall of Fame was started in 1936. and it was about Major League Baseball history, MLB. Okay? Period. Again, if you want to recognize the greats from the Negro Leagues, you should. No one here is saying you shouldn't, right, Benny? We're not saying Josh Gibson's not a Hall of Famer. We're not saying Satchel Paige is not a Hall of Famer. They are, okay? But to start putting the numbers in from a league that clearly was not on the same level, color aside, it's about the talent level, okay? One or two guys from each squad probably could have easily been Major League ball players, but all of them to be treated as equals when your records are so shoddily kept and you have someone named Smith with 3 question marks and you play 58 games and you call it a season? No, it's not the same thing.
One team actually had 3 Smiths with question marks. How do you know which Smith it was?
Right.
It's like the mailman at Parts Unknown. I mean,
right. Look, if I can use the wrestling analogy, and it's going to pain me. It's going to pay me to use this, but it's the truth, okay? I'm a huge ECW fan. Always was. But if you think that I'm going to put Sandman or Shane Douglas on the same equal level as a Hogan or a Roman Reigns or a Cody Rhodes now with what he's doing, no. It's ridiculous. You want to acknowledge them? I think Sandman's the Hall of Famer. He's not in, but I think he is. But that doesn't mean I'm going to equate what he did in that little arena in Philadelphia, as much as I loved it. I'm not going to equate that with selling out all across the world, you know? And what MLB was doing was filling stadiums up during World War I and II. Sellouts, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Okay? You can't change history, and that's what they're doing by doing this. They're trying to change it instead of just saying, we fucked up. There never should have been segregation. We're acknowledging it because we should, because it's the right thing to do. But now it's just becoming appeasement by doing this. No, nobody wins on this one. This is ridiculous.
Well, Jimmy, let me ask you this, though. Like, is doing this going to make up for the fact that Jackie Robinson couldn't even eat dinner with his teammates?
No.
Is that going to change that?
No, it doesn't change that. Look, segregating was douchey, all right? It was a douchebag move by douchebag decision makers, okay? But that is not your responsibility. It's not my responsibility. It doesn't change how much we love baseball and we love all the baseball players. I used to marvel reading about Josh Gibson, okay? For all those reverse racists that want to try to pull that bullshit card on either you or I, all right? Jackie Robinson, totally adore the guy. All right. How could you not? You know, one of my favorite baseball stories is when Pee Wee Reese walked over to him, the captain of the Dodgers, and put his arm around him in front of everyone, in front of the fans, in front of the media, in front of his teammates, and more importantly, in front of the opponents, because they were being real pricks about it, from what I remember the story being. That might have even been the great Rogers Hornsby, if I'm not mistaken, you know, or awesome, a Ty Cobb. Or a Ty Cobb type, you know? And he was like, no, this man is my teammate. This man is my brother. He's a great player, and he belongs, okay? I think we both come from that opinion. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it doesn't make you a racist because you don't believe that the Negro Leagues was on the same level of quality as the Major League Baseball during those times. It does not make you one.
I mean, a lot of these teams, you know, you like Josh Gibson would be hitting against somebody who, like, the next day, you know, they were packing their bags because the team folded. That happened quite often.
Right.
So,
well, it was a tough business to be a baseball player back in those days. And again, there were fewer teams and fewer players to be the best. You really had to be the best. You know, I mean, look at the NHL today. The NHL has 30 teams, 32 teams, or whatever they had. Yeah. There used to be the original 6. So that's why when I get crap being a New York Ranger fan, oh, your 3 cups that you won in, let me see, 27, 33, and 40, you know, no, 28, 33, and 40. I stand corrected. But, you know, oh, those don't count. There was only 6 teams, blah, blah, blah. You know how hard it was to be in the NHL when you got 6 teams? What does that mean? Yeah. The Canadians suck? Are you serious? I mean, my God. No, hey, Benny, I just got a text here from Rip. He says he's back. Can you get him in, or is that because we need Mike? I can't.
Let me see if Mike can.
Okay, stand by, folks. We're navigating. We're navigating these waters.
I think Mike's tossing back some adult beverages.
No, I don't blame him. I don't blame him. It's hot as hell out here tonight in Panama City Beach. My God,
not much different here.
I am melting. Oh, that's right. You're in the same state, so there you have it. But yeah, Benny, as you're texting that to Mikey, again, I mean, 6 NHL teams, 6. So it was really, really, really difficult to be a professional athlete back in those days. Football, the same thing, and even basketball. There were less teams back in those days, so the talent level was very, 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 very high. Only the best got in.
No, I hear you. So I think we beat that one to death, although I think we could probably go on for the rest of the hour about that. I did want to ask you, in your opinion, what was the best pitching season? And I have a list of them that you've ever seen.
The best pitching season I've ever seen was 1978 Ronald Ames Guidry.
Louisiana Lightning.
What Guidry did that year was unbelievable. I do believe he was 20. I believe he was 25-3. I see Mike in the corner having beverages. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
I don't even know if he can hear us, but I do see him.
No, I just.
Oh, there's Rip.
All right.
Rip, are you there? Can you hear us?
His beard even got longer since he's been on the show.
Yeah, and he changed rooms or something.
He did.
I don't know if he can hear us, Betty. Wait.
You got to unmute, Rip. I don't know if Mike can do anything for him.
You gotta love live TV.
I remember I read that Jackie Gleason doing a stunt actually ran through a wall and broke his leg. Did you ever hear that? Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember Gleason running through a wall. I remember him knocking down a wall when he did the Chef of the Future.
He was the precursor of Shockmaster, I guess.
Right.
No, I'm with you.
I think we lost Rip again there, Ben.
Yeah, he'll be back. Got to comb the kinks out of his beard there.
Well, so getting back to the greatest season I've ever seen, Ron Guidry, whose number is retired in Monument Park, number 49, Louisiana Lightning, Gator, as we all know and remember him, with the spitting out the chewing tobacco from the left side of his cheek, the left-hander. 25-3 that year. 1.74, I believe, earned run average.
That's correct.
248 strikeouts. This is all coming off the top of my head. I'm not positive. I think he had 248. I could be off by 1 or 2, maybe. I don't know.
So far, you're right on everything.
Okay. Guidry that year, I think, was 12-1 at the All-Star break and went 13-2 in the second half. He was unstoppable that year, and we needed every single bit of those wins because that was the year that we were down 14.5 games with about a month and a half to go, maybe not much time left, and somehow we wound up in a tie on the last day of the season against the great Boston Red Sox with Carlton Fisk and Jim Rice and Carl Yastrzemski and Dwight Evans, who should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. Great team. And we had, of course, the fateful playoff game where Bucky fucking Dent hit the home run, and the rest is history. The Yankees go on to win a World Series. It's the last one with Munson and Jackson, and, of course, the following year, Munson dies in the plane crash. But Guidry, during 78, is not only responsible for the greatest year I've ever seen as far as a pitcher goes, but he's responsible for something else that happens in every ballpark to this day. And it did start in this game. Guidry came into a game, started a game against, I do believe it was the California Angels.
Yes, sir.
And he started striking out everybody. He's striking them out. And the fans got more and more into it. And then a funny thing happened. All of a sudden, I guess maybe around his 7th or 8th strikeout, he gets to the 2-strike count. And the fans, louder, rooting for the strikeout. He got the strikeout, yeah! The next guy, 2 strikes. You see this now every game. You see this now to this day. It started that night against the California Angels, and it was Gator who started all of that. Some people debate with me, was Ron Guidry deserving of his number retired? When you realize what Ron Guidry was for about 13 years for the Yankees with his 2 Cy Youngs, his 2 championships, and the stud of a staff for over a decade, and well into the 80s, and the 80s won. The Yankees won the most games in the 80s. They didn't get the championship, unfortunately, but they did win the most games in baseball during the 1980s. Ron Guidry is obviously a great all-time Yankee, and of course his number deserves to be there. When I see Dennis Martinez getting the Hall of Fame instead of a Ron Guidry or a David Cohn, and for a long time, Jack Morris, I was screaming for that. But when I see guys like Guidry and Cohn overlooked, so Dennis Martinez can get in because he compiled, then why is Andy Pettitte not the hell in with his 240-plus career wins and all his rings? So there's a whole nother debate right there. But Guidry was the greatest season I think I've ever seen. I think Doc Gooden had a season that was comparable at one point. Doc might have been like 24-4.
Right.
Or something like that. Right. So I've seen Gooden do it. Yeah, to me, it's Guidry. Who is it to you? You got about 10 more years of watching baseball than I do. So.
All right. Well, statistically, if you use the wins against replacement, and I'm not the biggest fan of that.
I hate that nerd-ass stat, but go ahead.
No, and I'm not saying I don't agree with it. If you use that, of all the seasons I looked at, Gooden's 85 season, 24-4, 1.53, 16 complete games, 8 shutouts. His is statistically. Now, I don't agree with that. I'll tell you one that nobody really talks about, and I'm not saying it's the best, but Steve Carlton in 1972 was 27-10 with a 1.97, 30 complete games, 8 shutouts for a team that won, I think, 50-something games. That's amazing.
I can see that. That is.
I'm going to – no, to me, Jimmy, the greatest is Gibson, 1968.
What, with the 1.12 ERA? That's, like, ridiculous.
28 complete games, 13 shutouts. And you know how many 1-0 and 2-1 games he lost? And I think Shandings was the manager in 68, wasn't he? Yes, Rip. Can you hear us, Rip?
I believe so.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Rip, what was the greatest pitching season of all time, in your opinion?
I like Bob Gibson, and I like Ron Guidry.
All right. Wow. Spot on.
He had more starts. Gibson was a masterpiece almost every game. I like McLean, but he never come close. McLean never come close after that.
No, well, he won the Cy Young the next year. He won 24 games, and then he was, that was it. He was.
It's interesting about the. It's interesting about the. Go for it, Rip. Go ahead.
It's interesting about what you said. Then you said, "Go for it."
He frees up on us, Benny.
I was saying.
I was going to say it's interesting about the 68. I know that recently. It's funny, Benny. You would ask me on text because we talk often.
Yeah, McLean versus Gibson, 1968.
Yeah,
yes.
You asked me who had the better season, right? I didn't realize that you were in the middle of this giant Facebook thing where you had to fight off, people.
Oh my God!
I had no
ready
idea.
To burn me at the stake.
I had no idea. But
I endorsed Charles Manson for Man of the Year.
I'll tell you. This is how I feel about the 68 comparison. Of course, Gibson with the 1.12 ERA is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. McLean winning 31 games is also ridiculous. So if I had to choose which guy I would rather be in 1968, I would choose McLean, and the only reason why is because of the championship, even though Bob Gibson totally outpitched McLean in the World Series. I am aware of that. But if you have a season where you win 31 games and your team wins the World Series, I'm going to pick that year. Do I think he was a better pitcher than Bob Gibson even that year? No. But to
No.
win 31 games and to wind up with a World Series championship, that's a pretty damn good year.
Well,
that really is.
Of course, nobody's come close to it since, right? And it's what now, 56 years. And I think was the last 30-game winner Dizzy Dean?
Right.
And that was what, 1931?
Right before the Gas House game.
So really,
Correct.
I mean, like only once in the last 93 years. So I mean, that's definitely a historic season.
Right. It is.
But,
it is.
Yeah, he had the advantage of pitching every fourth day. Gibson pitched every fifth day. I mean, can you imagine if Gibson had 40 starts? He probably would have won 40 games.
Right.
Or close to it.
Right. Well, pitching is an art form, obviously, and as great as Guidry was, I don't know if people know this, and Guidry will be the first to tell you that in 1978, a certain veteran who had been through a lot of, sickness and a lot of injury, who had a bunch of rings to begin with, wound up going 12-1 down the stretch. And if he had not done that, Guidry will be the first to tell you that they don't win a world championship for a second year in a row without Catfish Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
Because what Catfish Hunter did, coming off of the terrible injuries, and he was starting to get the diabetes problem, and there was, obviously Catfish was at the end, but he willed himself. And it's amazing to me. One chiropractic adjustment, and he just went out there and went 12-1 down the stretch, and it was his last great hurrah. And he was a huge part of that championship. What's pitching? Pitching's everything. It's everything.
I mean, I don't know about you. I had written him off. I'm thinking like this guy's done, right? And when he came back, I'm thinking like they're going to use him they're going to hit him like he's a batting practice pitcher. Right. And man, he just was lights out.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't win if it wasn't for him.
Right. In 77, Catfish was 9-9. He got pelted in the playoffs. So people did think it was over for Catfish. He started off very poorly in 78. And then he tried a chiropractic adjustment. This is before chiropractors were, a fad or a thing that people now even today go to.
Right.
He took a chiropractic adjustment. He felt something pop in his shoulder. He goes, "Wow, I feel okay." And he turned around and went 12-1 down the stretch in 78. Boy, that 78 team, what a story that team was. That was crazy.
Now, in my opinion, though, I never saw such dominance. I mean, Guidry was unhittable for a whole season. I mean, nobody could touch the guy.
You know the story, right? They had a coin flip to see who would host that elimination playoff game, the Yankees or the Red Sox. They had a coin flip, and the Yankees lost the coin flip. And Steinbrenner got into an elevator, and there was Guidry, and Steinbrenner was like, really down. And he says to Guidry, "We lost the fucking coin flip. We lost the coin flip." And Guidry looked at him. He goes, "But boss, I'm pitching. You got nothing to worry about." And Steinbrenner said he felt so much better after that. And, of course, Guidry went out there and got the job done in that playoff game. He did. He got the job done. Goose came in and did what Goose always does, gets us a little nervous, right? Gossage would get us nervous sometimes. It wasn't Mariano. Gossage would come in and get us nervous. And then, of course, he would get the save. And he closed it out. Yeah. And the rest is history. The Royals, the Dodgers, the trophy. The end.
Man, those were the days.
They were. And that's back when players took big contracts and actually lived up to them. Reggie Jackson, there will never be another guy like him. I don't care. I haven't seen one. The closest thing I can compare Reggie to is when Mark Messier came to New York and broke the 1940 curse and delivered. It said I would and did. There are very few like that. What Reggie did is ridiculous. How can you possibly get to the plate 3 times in a title-clinching World Series championship closing game and on the first pitch, put it in the stands? Are you serious? We don't see players like this anymore. He wanted the pressure. He lived on being told he's not good enough or he's this or he's that. He was given nothing but crap when he was here. And when I hear people say, "Oh, he's not a Yankee, he shouldn't have his number retired," where did Mr. October come from? Did it come from Oakland?
No. Nope.
Yeah, it came from New York, because what he did in those 5 years, no one could even replicate in a lifetime. It was ridiculous what he squeezed in those 5 years, 4 pennants or was it 3 pennants? Let me make sure I got this right. 77, 78, and 81. 3 pennants, 2 championships. He hit great even in the World Series we lost. You know, that's when, unfortunately, Dave Winfield got labeled Mr. May by Steinbrenner. And I was very happy when Dave Winfield corrected all of that years later and got the game-winning double down the line so the Blue Jays could win a world championship. You know, thank God. Otherwise, Winfield would have been stuck with that forever, which was wrong. Dave Winfield's one of the all-time great Yankees. I hate that he went in as a Padre. He was still mad at George. He should have dropped that. Yeah. Hey, Benny, think about this. 100 years from now, there's fathers taking their sons to the Hall of Fame. You want to like point to the plaque of Dave Winfield and go, that's Dave Winfield. He was a Padre? Or you want to point to that plaque and go, he was a Yankee? Which one do you think that the kid is going to absorb?
Yeah.
It was a terrible business decision. He let his emotions get in the middle of that. You know, and I don't know if you remember this, but the media guide, I used to love Yankee media guides. They were not a yearbook. There was the actual media guide that the media themselves would use, filled with stats, filled with information, stuff like a nerd like you and me, baseball nerds, just eat up, right? So the year that Winfield's going into the Hall of Fame, if you open up that media book, number 31 is there in the pinstripe, like when they put the number on the wall. So you could see that George was planning on retiring Dave's number.
Right.
And then Dave turns around and just shafts him and goes, no, I'm a Padre. No, you're not. You're not a Padre. That was a terrible decision.
Jimmy, did you have a problem with Reggie being outspoken? Because I didn't. Because, he called him, he said, I'm the straw that stirs the drink.
Right.
Is that what he said? But he was. He was. Everywhere he went, they won.
He was, and it was one of George's greatest regrets that he let him go. George said about it years later. Yeah, you know what? Great players do great things. When Reggie returned as an Angel, I think he faced Guidry, and he put the ball in the upper deck. I mean, kaboom. You know, because he was not afraid of the big moment. He lived for the big moment. And at the end of the day, isn't that what you want out of your teammate? Isn't that what you want out of a player? We don't work hard at our regular everyday jobs to go swelter in the upper deck in Yankee Stadium and see some guy half-assing it. Reggie Jackson lived to win and was born to win and won a lot. And you don't see that anymore. You don't. Giancarlo Stanton is a joke. The money that Giancarlo Stanton makes, he should return it. Because this guy does not play. He's always hurt. He can't run. He doesn't want to play the field. Reggie Jackson almost beat Billy Martin up in the dugout because he wanted to stay in the outfield.
Right.
It's completely different nowadays.
How much money is Stanton's getting? Like $25 million a year for 13 years? I think $325. That's crazy.
It's a horror show. It's a terrible investment. And it affected Brian Cashman for the last bunch of years. I mean, somehow we have great pitching right now, and I'm surprised, you know. But
not last night, though.
Well, okay. It's one game. It is what it is.
No, I know.
But so far, the pitching has been fantastic.
Starting pitching has been excellent. Even the middle relievers have been good. Holmes has been good for the most part. He's blown a couple of them, though. That was painful last night.
Look, you're never going to have Mariano again. And even the great Mariano, look, I'm still haunted by 2001.
Oh, God. That was horrible.
Look, he's not perfect, okay? No. He was as close to perfect as you could get. He's the greatest closer that ever lived, obviously. But I still relive in my mind, you know, what gets lost here is that Alfonso Soriano homers the inning before against Curt Schilling. Put him in the Hall of Fame, by the way. What's this? Now, we're not going to put Schilling in because of his political observations? What kind of garbage is that? Absolute garbage, you know? But Schilling gives up the home run. Soriano hits it to right field. Soriano is about to be remembered as one of the all-time great Yankees with one of the all-time great clutch moments if that stands, if that result stands. And Roger Clemens winds up the World Series MVP because 3 different times he went out there and they couldn't hit him. He outdueled them. So all of this is on the line, and Mariano takes that ball and throws it into center field. And I still remember my mom, who doesn't watch baseball. She's in the other room. And I hear my mom go, oh, my God, like she knew before the outcome. And I hear my father, get back in here. Because I walked the F out of the room. I said, I'm going to go watch this alone. because I already know what's about to happen. And he was like, oh, all this negativity. I'm like, Dad, how many games have you watched? You watched going all the way back to Tommy Henrik. What are you talking about? This is bad omen stuff, you know? So Mariano wasn't perfect.
No.
It is what it is, you know? Clay Holmes is going to blow a game here and there. If we still win a championship, so be it, because Goose used to make me nervous, too.
No,
Just get
agree.
the job done.
Rip, are you still there?
Is Rip with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So do you guys know enough about the whole deal with Shohei Ohtani that we can talk about that? And like, what is your take on it? Do you think that he? Go ahead, Rip.
He ain't stupid. If you're not allowed to bet on shit, you're not allowed to bet on shit. It's simple. Pete Rose paid forever, and he bet on himself. Is that what you're talking about? That thing?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that it very quickly got swept under the rug.
But he had his agent bet for him or something like that?
Well,
place all the bets.
The agent's the one who's taking the heat. They're saying that the agent actually was the one doing the betting.
Benny, I hate to be cynical, guys, but I think that they're full of shit and they're protecting their golden boy. That's what I think.
Well, yeah, because let's think about it. So he was the interpreter. Ippei Matsuhara, I think his name was.
Gesundheit.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was those baked beans I ate. But I mean, so what is he making as an interpreter? quarter $250,000?
Right.
Hey, I would take all the heat. It's on me. I stole it. I go to prison for 10 years or whatever it is, and I get so many millions a year that he's paying me, and I'll shut the fuck up. I'm
wondering if that's what happened.
When I get out, I'll be.
But I mean, first of all,
okay,
a bookie is why would a bookie extend millions of dollars of credit to a guy who's making at most $250,000 a year? First of all, you know, assuming that the interpreter was making the bets, what bookie is going to give that guy that much credit?
Right.
That makes no sense. And then, I mean, Ohtani I'm sure he's got an accountant, he's got an agent, he's got he's got the interpreter. I'm sure he's got like a business manager. You mean to tell me like all those times that $500,000 got drafted out of his Wells Fargo account and nobody noticed?
Right. Look, they're protecting the golden boy. This is all hypocrisy. Listen, one of the reasons why Pete Rose has been kept out all these years was a personal vendetta from the ultimate scumbag known as Bud Selig, who was a complete crook and a bullshit fucking artist. The guy was the worst. What did he ever do for his Milwaukee Brewers? Have they ever even been to a fucking World Series yet after all these decades? No. He didn't give a shit about what's right or what's wrong. He had the title of commissioner, and he judged Pete Rose, and the commissioners ever since Pete Rose are all just keeping face. It's crap already. Pete Rose should be put in the fucking Hall of Fame by now. It's just my opinion, but I mean, come on, stop it already. He didn't kill anybody, and like Rip said, he always bet on his team to win. I cannot picture Pete Rose, the way he played this game, throwing away games to lose. I can't see it. Was it wrong to gamble? Of course it was. Should he have been punished? Of course he should have.
But has he paid the penalty already? I
believe he has.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe he has by now. Rip, what do you think?
Well, you can murder somebody and get 7 years?
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. What's going on here?
How long has he been out of baseball? It's close to 40 now, right?
What was the year he was suspended? This happened in the late 80s, no? Was this 89?
Maybe?
Yeah, dude, it's almost 40 years already. Stop it already. Stop. You know? And the steroid crap in the 90s, that's the most hypocritical nonsense ever. Look, the owners knew what the players were taking. All the players were taking it, okay? The media knew. We as fans knew. It was not a secret that these guys were juicing. Look at Barry Bonds' head in 1991 and look at Barry Bonds' skull in 2002. And you're going to tell me that's not roids? Everybody knew it. So
you can't get that at the gym. Yeah, you
So
can't do noggin questions.
No. So to turn around after all these years and tell me with a strip, by the way, when that list came out of the offenders, anybody notice that over 80% of that list, those people that were juicing, sucked? They were terrible. All right? So steroids
Well,
does
that's why
not
they were juicing.
guarantee. I'm sorry?
Hey, you got to remember. You got to remember, Mark McGwire in his rookie year hit 49 home runs. And
Thank
he was
you.
a string bean.
Thank you. That's right.
He was
If
a
you got the
beanpole, though.
talent, you got the talent.
Right.
As
Bingo.
far as we went back to over the counter and Stendion, etc. There was at that time there was no rule. There was nothing.
No, that was
hell,
legal.
I would let it. Hey, you guys can take anything you want. Yeah, you can take anything you want. If you can't hit, you can't hit. If you
Right.
can't pitch, you can't pitch.
Right.
You're just not any good.
That's
It's
right.
not going to help you. It might help you. It'll help you with recovery. But if you ain't worth
Right.
the fuck to begin with, if you're lucky to if you're a AAA ball, maybe a AA player, and they got so many teams now that you've latched on because you're a backup at 4 different positions and you can pinch hit, a switch hitter every kind of, and you can get the owner a fucking sandwich every night, or line him up with some pussy, whatever that is. But I like the thing. Do whatever you want to do. It's your fucking body.
Right.
Barry Bonds was just fucking great.
Yes.
I don't give a shit about steroids.
Yep.
Because when he was weighing 168 pounds, he was a great hitter.
He was. Yeah. He was going to be.
And
Roger Clemens back in the 80s. You're going to tell me that he wasn't going to be a Hall of Famer by the time he was done?
No, he was lights out right from the get-go.
He was lights out. Yeah. The whole thing is so hypocritical at this point. I want Sosa in. I want McGwire in. I want Bonds in. I want Clemens in. How come nobody talks about how big Greg Luzinski was back in 1980? You look at those forearms. What? He wasn't taking. He was taking something.
That guy was that was a cigarette machine with legs. I mean,
yeah, but he was taking something. You know.
But here's the guys that really I don't understand though is like a Rafael Palmeiro, who was hitting 7 home runs or 11 home runs, and all of a sudden he's hitting 43. I mean, that was a case. I mean, he was a good hitter,
I don't think Palmeiro's a good example, Benny. I think Palmeiro was a great hitter who would have wound up in the Hall of Fame one way or the other. If you want to really bring out somebody that during the steroid era, it obviously worked for him and he was really shit on his shingle, Brady Anderson.
Yeah.
Because he hit 50 home runs one year. Brady Anderson was not a great ball player. I don't even know what that was. All right. But you have other weird examples of it. He was a better hitter. But George Foster hitting 52 home runs in 1977, he never came near that again.
Right.
Hey, but you got to look at Roger Maris hitting 61.
Right. That's true.
So there are guys on that particular. Everything fell into place.
Correct.
And you rode the wave, and then it was never to happen again.
Right. Correct. Well, Rip, I got to ask you, how do you feel about Harold Baines being a Hall of Famer? How does that strike you?
I would never in my right mind thought about it.
Have you seen his numbers? Because it's very strange. Harold Baines was like a 20 home run, 80 RBI guy for like 25 years. He's got 1,600 and change runs batted in. It's almost hard to.
That's unbelievable.
Right. So, I mean, is he a Hall of Famer? I guess the numbers say he is, right? I mean, it's weird.
Okay.
I don't think the guy was never in the.
What are we looking for? Are we looking for a certain average, or are we giving him all these votes because he had great longevity?
Right.
And he had great.
Well, you're rewarding his longevity because
that's like pitching. No, give me that 4-year thing Sandy Koufax had.
Right.
I don't give a shit about I don't give a shit about nobody.
Right.
Else. You know what I mean?
Give me Vita Blue from 72 through 75 or 6.
Yeah,
Vita Blue.
63 to was I think Koufax 63 to 66. I think he won like 91 games and lost like 20.
The only one who compares to him as far as a 5 or 6 year stretch is Pedro Martinez back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Because Pedro Martinez, when you think about his earned run average during the height of the steroids, his earned run average, you had to look at it through a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
That to me is amazing.
Yeah,
So,
his
that's a
2000
debate.
season.
That's a real debate. Who was better,
And look how
Koufax
little
during
and
that
how
run?
and what did he weigh?
Oh, Pedro's a little guy. Little guy.
150, soaking
That's what
wet.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I'm saying.
Well, even Guidry. What did Guidry weigh? He couldn't have weighed more than 160 pounds.
Guidry was like 165, 170 pounds soaking wet. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we could have another whole session just on how did a Ryan, a Seaver, a Hunter, a Ferguson Jenkins, a Gibson, all these guys routinely throw 25 to 30 complete games a year, pitch 325 innings and never have arm problems.
Well,
and now everybody's a fucking pussy.
Right.
Jacob deGrom should be the poster boy for Vagisil because, the guy's collecting $38 million a year. He pitched 5 starts last year, and he still hasn't pitched this year.
Well, that's up to a stupid GM that wants to spend that kind of money and waste it on him,
Yeah, knowing his history, what was that guy thinking?
I have no idea. I never would have locked anybody up with that kind. But that bothers me a lot about a lot of pitchers today. For example, and he's doing very well this year, and I'm very happy he is. But in the recent years, Brian Cashman is not doing what he did back in the late 90s. He's bringing pitchers on and paying them a fortune. I looked up Carlos Rodon's lifetime season-by-season breakdown. The most games he ever won in a season was 14 before he got this insane contract from the New York Yankees. I do not want a guy who maxes out at 14 wins, and I'm not going to give him Catfish Hunter kind of money. Catfish Hunter, the first year he got to the Yankees, the first real big free agent, by the way, won 23 games. Period. Because that's what Catfish would do. His resume said he would do that. When we traded David Wells for Roger Clemens, I wound up having arguments with some Yankee fans because David Wells is beloved. David Wells is a great Yankee. And these things are true. But David Wells is not Roger Clemens. I want Roger Clemens. And what does Roger go on to do? Oh, I don't know. Win a Cy Young, never lose a World Series game in the 6 seasons he pitched with the Yankees. He's Roger Clemens. You get what you pay for. And nowadays, they're investing in shit pitchers who haven't really done that much. And they're getting a fortune. It's sickening to me.
Even a mediocre pitcher now is getting a multi-million-dollar contract.
Well, now let's go back to the Black Sox, right?
Sure.
Before they were slaves to the owner and they made no money no matter what.
Right.
Now it's just the opposite. You're still a major leaguer, but you have nothing with greatness in you, and you're making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to play a game, and you can take off whenever you want to. Oh, I'm not feeling good.
Yeah,
my shoulder's a little tight. Where all the other guys was doing everything they had to do just to fucking make it.
Well, shit, I remember I read Yogi Berra's autobiography several times when I was a kid. Him and Joe Garagiola would work at Sears in the off season just to make ends meet. Now, Yogi was lucky because he was getting that World Series check every year.
Yeah, before the Andy Messersmith decision, everybody did that. Y'all got a job when the season was over.
Well, Jimmy, what year did Mantle win the Triple Crown? Was it 56?
56. Yep.
Then he signed. Then he signed for less money, right?
I think they sent him a contract for the same amount.
Yeah, I think he might have taken a pay cut. I think Rip might have something there. I think he might have.
The thing was, he won the Triple Crown and he made less money.
Yep.
And what would he be signed for today? What kind of money would Mantle
then he
make?
was Dick and Doris. He was Dick and Doris Day, and he made the great movie Safe at Home. It didn't get any better than that,
What would Mickey Mantle be worth today? Well, let's see. What is the numbers being thrown around? And he's been great for us this year. But what are the numbers being thrown around for Soto's contract, Benny? Do you know?
No, I don't. I mean,
I was hearing something over $400 million. If Soto is worth $400 million, Mickey would be a billionaire.
well,
Period.
I mean, I don't think Soto's going to get Ohtani money, although I think Soto maybe should. But
well, you know what? I wanted to ask you guys while I got both of you here, because who knows? You know, this is awesome to have the three of us here. Do you think that, and I hear this from young guys, and I go crazy when I hear this. Do you think Ohtani is better than Babe Ruth because he hits and pitches? He's better than Babe Ruth. What do you guys think about that one?
No way.
Rip?
Okay, let's look at Babe when he first started pitching, right? And he had the World Series record for most scored innings when he was a pitcher, right?
Yep.
Yep. And then he was just hitting on the side. He was the first guy to really do that. So now all of a sudden, Ohtani, he should know he's got everything there is to look at all the history of every kind of guy to help him, to point stuff out. And hell, I don't even know if Babe Ruth could even read or write.
Right.
We know he could hit. That's for sure. And you know, he didn't have the mental capacity. Go ahead.
No, he was well on. Look, if I believe this too, if Babe Ruth had never become a hitter, he was well on pace to becoming a Hall of Fame pitcher. He was unhittable.
He was
top
94 and
notch.
42, I think his record was.
94 and 42 as a pitcher. He was
2.20 ERA.
What was the ERA?
I think 2.20.
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
With a crap load of shutouts.
It was clear.
Yeah,
and how many rings? How many rings? 3, 4? Before he even got to the Yankees, he had several rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had the record for
Right. So then he goes on to launch more home runs than entire teams. An entire league. He goes on to launch more home runs.
When he hit 59 home runs, he hit more than 3 teams.
Right.
Combined,
they livened the ball up in 21.
Right. And just to throw in some more and Betty and Rip, you guys might know this, but the audience at home may not. After Babe Ruth got to the Yankees and obviously was converted as a full-time hitter, which he should have been, it was the right move. Once again, a great business decision by Jacob Ruppert. Great decision. They asked Babe 5 times over the course of his Yankee career, 5 times only, do you mind taking the ball today and pitching?
Yes.
Guess what Babe Ruth's record was for those 5 games? 5-0. Hey, are you going to compare Ohtani to a guy who had 714 home runs, was 94 and 42 with a 2.20 ERA, with World Series rings as a pitcher, and then World Series rings as a hitter, and then basically becoming the most famous baseball player that ever walked the face of the earth? This generation wants to compare Ohtani to Babe Ruth.
Not even close. How many games? Well, Ohtani's top season, how many games has he won? 11?
Stop. That's what I'm getting at here. Stop. I'm glad they didn't get Ohtani. We don't need a circus. We need championships. And it's funny, too, with all the great players we're mentioning, and you guys both know this, what wins championships, of course you have to have a mantle. Of course you should have a Jackson, or you should have a Mike Schmidt, or whoever. But without those little guys, those guys who come out and just play baseball. Benny, let me ask you, you're a huge Yankee fan. Where would the Yankee dynasty have been without Scott Brocious?
I mean, it's him and so many other guys, those key players, like Leyritz, right? Another guy.
Do you know who won the 98 World Series MVP, right? Scott Brocious.
Right.
Okay? You got to have baseball players on your team.
What was the biggest odds that somebody like that would have won? 100-1?
Right. And Bernie Williams should be in the Hall of Fame. It makes me sick that he's so overlooked. You're talking about a switch hitter that hit cleanup was a gazelle in the outfield, made everything look easy. Everything hit to him. My father used to say, now that reminds me of DiMaggio, because Bernie would just glide to a ball and be there. Okay? The cleanup hitter of a dynasty. The late 90s Yankees, we have not seen anything like that since the 50s. There has been no dynasty that rattled off 4 out of 5 years world championships. They had baseball players. You had Chili Davis coming off the bench. You had Tim Raines coming off the bench. You had Darryl Strawberry coming off the bench. We had baseball players. We didn't just have the studs. We didn't have a Bonds. We had Bernie and Paul O'Neill and Georgie Posada. Everybody's number is retired, so at least the Yankees realized what they were and who they were. But to not put Bernie Williams in the Hall of Fame, to me, is total ignorance.
Yeah. They had just the right mix, and nobody, like you said, nobody was really phenomenal, but you had a lot of very, very good ball players. I mean, I would say Bernie, to me, Bernie was great, but
Bernie was.
Yeah.
Bernie was totally great. Did Rip freeze again on us?
I don't know.
No, I'm right here listening.
Oh, okay. He's listening. He looks up. There he is.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Very good.
So what was the greatest team of all time? Last topic.
Rip, take it first.
I like 61 Yankees.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, why not?
Tell us
Okay.
why, Rip.
Okay, with
Mickey, runs, right?
Okay, we got Elson Howard, we got Yogi Berra, we got Moose Skowron, we got Bobby Richardson, we got Clete Boyer, we got Tony Kubek, and Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, and then was Tom Tresh there or just playing start? Huh?
I think Tom Tresh was there. I think so.
I think Tom Tresh was the 62 Rookie of the Year.
Oh, okay. Okay, right around the corner. Right around the corner.
And you had Whitey and you had, I think, Ralph Perry as the two starters. Then you had Luis Arroyo as the closer.
Yeah, he had the Scroogey, so you know what the hell, right?
What a season that had
to
be. I'm jealous that I didn't get to see that. I wish I could have seen the 61 Yankees.
I went to the 61 World Series when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Yankees Reds.
My dad took me to Crosley Field to see Vada Pinson, Frank Robinson, Wally Post, Tommy Harper.
Wally Post.
Wow.
Don Blasingame.
Yeah. Don Blasingame was at second. Yeah. Chico Cardenas, Gene Freeze, and Don Clinton. No, who was at first base? God damn it! I can see his face, and I can't think of his name.
It wasn't Kluszewski, was it?
No, he was gone.
He was gone.
Yeah, he was gone.
There's the name of Kluszewski. Wow.
I'll think of it when I ain't trying to think of it.
Of course, that's the way it always works. Yep.
Who's yours?
Sleeping in bed all of a sudden.
The most dominant team I've ever seen was the '98 Yankees, and it shouldn't be a revelation to anybody. I mean, I became a fan in the early '70s, so I saw the Oakland A's, and then I saw the Yankee thing with the Bronx is burning. The '80s was weird because there wasn't really a dominant team during the '80s. The Dodgers won in '81 and '88, but there was no, dynasty of any kind really going on. The '98 Yankees was ridiculous because if you take the regular season and you take the postseason and you look at the record is 125 and 50. It's bizarre. They roller steamed everybody that year. They just ran everybody over. They were the best baseball team I've ever seen. They had balance. If you had a lead after 6 innings, this game was over because you had Stanton and Nelson. Now, Stanton had been a very good closer, for other teams. And then you had Jeff Nelson, and the two of them would take you and bridge the gap to Mariano. After 6 innings, I think at one point there was one season during the dynasty, there was 79-2 with a lead after 6 innings. The game is over. I've never saw a season like that. They were absolutely a machine. And I remember the closest they came to having their dominance challenged was against the Cleveland Indians in the second round of the playoffs. That's the infamous play where Knobloch, the ball goes out into the outfield, and he's arguing that there was runner interference, and they lost the game, and they were down 2-1. Oh, no. I remember the panic from the media. Oh, no, what are we going to do here? Well, what we did was we rolled the fellow who came in on the rowboat from Cuba. We took El Duque, and we put him out there, and he stopped that bleeding immediately, and we took the next 2 games, and then we swept the World Series. Tony Gwynn was in awe of Yankee Stadium. He still managed to be the only guy who showed up for his team, but, in general, that was the 98 Yankees. The 98 Yankees were the greatest thing I've ever seen. 125-50. The only other team I will mention, and I have to, is the 84 Tigers. The 84 Tigers started off 40-5, I think.
Yeah.
They were unbelievable. That team was really a amazing baseball team. Again, not loaded with the Bonses of the world and the McGuires. You had the great Trammell and Whitaker, and how Trammell's in and Whitaker's not in the Hall of Fame. You got to fix that. That needs to be fixed. All right, because Lou Whitaker is a Hall of Famer. That's the greatest DP combination in my lifetime, or at least as far as turning double plays, because the math says so. Whitaker was a Hall of Fame second baseman. He should be in. So I would say the 98 Yankees, and with an honorable mention to the 84 Tigers. What a season that was for them.
You're not going to 27 Yankees doesn't do it for you?
Now, if you're asking me about the greatest team of all time.
Yes.
The greatest team of all time, I would have to say, is the 27 Yankees. It's very hard to argue with that. You've got half your starting staff is Hall of Famers. You have Hall of Famers littered throughout the lineup, and not just any Hall of Famers. You have Ruth and Gehrig, obviously.
But
then you have
Tony Lazzari at second, right?
Tony Lazzari is the greatest Yankee second baseman in the history of the franchise. People don't even realize how great Tony Lazzari was. His numbers were gaudy. They were ridiculous. And how about a center fielder with, I want to say, like a 330-something lifetime batting average? That's Combs.
Yeah, Earl
Combs was a hit machine. He was like another Ty Cobb, probably less dirty, but seemed to play the game the same way. He would just base hit you to death.
The other guy was Musiel, right? Irish Musiel.
Bob Musiel, who's also, I believe, in the Hall of Fame. He's an afterthought. You got a 30 home run, 110 RBI guy. That's the afterthought.
The shortstop was Mark Koenig, I think, right? But great fielder. It wasn't like that. Not a bad hitter, though.
Right.
Dugan was at third base.
Dugan was at third base. They had a couple of catchers. I mean, they were just so top heavy. And when you go 110-44, and I think they swept the Pirates that year in the World Series.
Yes, they did. They did.
Right. So what are we talking here? That's probably the greatest baseball team of all time. I would say so. 27 Yankees.
Although they didn't, I think they didn't win the next year. I don't think
they won in 28.
They won in 28. When did the Athletics win? They won 3 years. Then they won.
The Yankees, that particular Yankee thing, they got to the World Series in 26. They lost, I want to say, to the Cardinals.
Yes, that was Grover Cleveland Alexander struck out Lazzari.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Yeah. And the next year they won, and then they won in 28. And then they didn't win again until 1932. That much I can tell you.
Okay. Yeah, because the A's, I think, won 2 or 3 years in a row.
Connie Mack.
Cornelius McGillicuddy. Went 50 years as a manager. That's incredible.
It is incredible. It is. I mean, have we seen anything like that? Nope. Walter Alston. How many years was Walter Alston with the Dodgers? I mean,
24.
It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. That's why it was so amazing that Joe Torre lasted 12 years,
I'm glad for Joe Torre because, great ball player.
Very great.
Not, he was. That 1 year he had 363?
I honestly feel he was a Hall of Famer as a baseball player.
He absolutely was. Totally agree.
But that's me.
He was, talk about a line drive hitter. Not a lot of power, but, hit the crap out of the ball.
Joe Torre was a great baseball player. Definitely a Hall of Famer. I'm glad he took care of it with his managerial career because what he did, like I said, what the Yankees did in the late 90s, it's funny. I remember my father, he was getting towards the end of his life at that point. Neither one of us knew that, of course, but because he died suddenly. But he would bitch about the Yankees back in those days. And by the time that we got to title number 3, It's now we're getting ready for the fourth one, and we were struggling that year. Most people forget that 2000, when we won the 4 out of 5 years, 2000 was a struggle. We really limped to the finish line that year, and I remember my father just lambasting Pettit and Bernie. Oh my God, he used to rip at them, and I don't know why them, but for some reason he would rip at them. I remember getting really ticked off about it because we had very passionate baseball conversations like a father and son should. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? I'm like, do you realize? Now, keep in mind, this is 2000. We've won 3 out of the last 4 years. I said, do you realize what we're in the middle of right now? Because you lived through it, Dad. We haven't seen anything like this in Major League Baseball since the 50s when you were watching the Yankees winning 50, 51, 52, 53.
49 through 53,
Yeah,
five in
you
a
know
row.
what I mean, you saw this for yourself. I'm like, don't you realize what's happening right now?
And how
I'm
much
never going
harder it is now to do that.
Yeah, I said, Dad, I'm never going to see this again. Can I at least enjoy it? Because I don't believe we ever will see anything like that again. With the way players are even more so changing teams, and camaraderie seems to be less and less of a thing. And a player is now not a member of the team where he's working for the owner. He's a brand. I'm a brand. Check me out. I'm gonna buy my shoe. You know, we don't have what we had even then. So to me, I was like, Dad, can we enjoy this? And then when they beat the Mets, my father turned to me. He goes, "You're right. This is the greatest damn thing since Casey Stengel. I submit, you know." And then all those years later, my father was gone. I couldn't keep a dry eye when they retired Pettit's number, when they retired Bernie's number. You know, I mean, we just recently went past Thurman Munson's birthday, and it still pains me as a lifelong Yankee fan. Anytime I think of Thurman, I just get sad because he's a Hall of Famer.
Do you remember?
I don't want to hear it. You know.
You know that I can tell you that I'm trying to think. There's very few moments where, like Kennedy, I remember, you know, because I was alive for that. I remember getting onto the school bus. I was in third grade, and the bus driver just said the president's been shot, and I came home to my mother hysterical crying.
Right.
You got, you know, a 911, but one of the few moments I absolutely remember where I was the day Munson got killed.
Yeah.
I was camping in Maine. And one of my brother's friends said Thurman Munson died. I said, "Get the fuck out of here!" I was horrified.
Yep. Munson. The timing in my personal life of Munson's death was pretty momentous because we were moving to Long Island. I'm about to meet Mike Monty. I'm about to, you know, form a friendship with somebody who means very much to me, and years later, we're doing the show, and then I get to meet you. It's funny how all these things fall into place somehow due to fate, circumstances, whatever you can call it. But we were in the middle of living in a motel on Long Island because the closing had not happened yet. There was something holding it up. So we're sitting in a motel room, and I remember my father telling me that Thurman had died, and I was only 11 going on 12. What a sissy. Oh my God, I lost my mind. I'm crying. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm still trying to figure out what death means. I mean, heck, I'm still trying to figure it out now. But at 11 or 12 years old, I'm like, oh my God, he's gone. What happened? And of course, that night that they buried Thurman that day, I'm watching from that motel room. We're still not in the damn house yet. We're waiting to move into Long Island. And there's that game where Bobby Mercer, and I'm sure you could tell me a lot more about how much Bobby Mercer means to Yankee fans, but Bobby Mercer goes out there and knocks in all 5 runs, and we beat the Baltimore Orioles 5-4 on the day that he buried his best friend. And you can't make this stuff up. It's
another
it's
great
eternal.
Game. Bobby Mercer. And it's funny because I remember when he came up, I think it was at the end of the 64 season or 65 season, and he was the next Mantle, and he kind of bust, you know, he was a bust in the beginning.
Right.
And then, you know, he found his groove. I mean, he wasn't Mantle, but he was a damn good ball player.
Do you think he deserves a plaque of some kind in Yankee Stadium?
I do.
Interesting.
I do. And I would like to live long enough to see Munson get inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, you can make a case for or against, but to me, there is not much of a case. All right. Number one, you have to start with you can't hold death against them. That's horse shit. All right. Let's just take a look at the decade that he played in. He played in throughout the entire decade of the 70s, minus those 2 short months of where he died. Okay, so if you look at the 70s, let's see. What are the things that a Hall of Famer trajectory would accomplish? First of all, was he Rookie of the Year, Benny?
Yes.
Okay. Second of all, did he win Gold Gloves at his position?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Did he ever win an MVP?
He sure did.
Okay. How was he in the postseason? Does he have championships with a ridiculous postseason batting average?
His batting average is, I think, about 370 postseason.
Okay. Very good. Okay. And the last question. How often did you see catchers outside of another great who doesn't get the love he should get, outside of Ted Simmons, who the hell at catcher finishes with a 292 lifetime batting average?
Not Carlton Fisk.
Not Johnny Bench.
Right.
Either. Neither of them. Okay? Now, listen, if it's 1975, 76, 77, 78, and you're asking me to pick Bench, Fisk, or Munson, I'm still picking Thurman Munson.
100%.
Because you do not run on Thurman Munson, all right? I don't know how this all gets lost in this. Did you ever see the play where Munson side arms a ball? Because the ball was so low and outside that he just like Quisenberry, still in squat mode. Still in squat mode. The guy's trying to steal second base, and he underhands like Quisenberry, a strike. The guy's out. You did not run on Thurman Munson. Bad idea. Situational hitter. Who do you want up at the plate? A guy that's going to just swing for the seats, or a guy who could put it in the seats, but if he sees a hole between right and right center, you're done. Because he's a situational hitter. He's got bat control. Thurman Munson.
And who was more inspirational than Munson?
Well, to hammer home your point as far as inspiration, and this is a true story, it's a great one too. Thurman Munson was named the first captain since Lou Gehrig's passing. They had said that they would never have another captain ever again after Lou Gehrig died. Okay, well, George Steinbrenner decides, and one of the many different revolutionary ideas George had as he was building the Yankees into what they are today, he decided that Thurman would be the first captain since Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig's wife, who's so poignantly portrayed in, the great Gary Cooper movie,
where he Pride of the Yankees.
Pride of the Yankees, she calls George, and she's like, she's upset, and she should be upset. I get it. She should be upset. She's like, George, why are you making Thurman captain? He shouldn't be captain. And George said, Mrs. Gehrig, if you knew Thurman Munson, you would know that he should be captain, that he's the right man for the job. And Munson took the C and acted like a captain. He did. He was a great captain. He was a great leader. Everyone in that clubhouse respected him, Reggie included. The big delusionary story is Reggie and Thurman didn't get along. That's bullshit. Reggie did love Thurman, and they did see eye to eye.
And he respected him.
They did see eye to eye by the end. You know? I mean, they really did. I mean, I had the privilege of knowing Steve Jacobson, the beat writer from back in those days, okay? And it's a small world. I happened to be working in a medical lab, and lo and behold, he was one of my doctor's patients. So I used to, get his blood and test his blood work and stuff. And I'll never forget one time his wife came in, because I was friendly with Mr. Jacobson. I would talk to him. He was a very nice man. And she said, could you do me a favor? Could you have lunch with Steve today? Because Steve was coming in to see the doctor. And I said, I thought that was a strange request. I was like, sure, what's up? And she goes, no, it's just that he enjoys talking to you so much, and he doesn't get to talk baseball because he's long retired now and he's not well. So I thought to myself, wow, this is great. I got to sit several lunches with Steve Jacobson and hear directly from the horse's mouth what that locker room was like back in the Bronx's burning days in the late 70s, early 80s. And I'll tell you what, I do believe what he told me. The man who had the most on his shoulders the entire time, the one who took the most shit, the one who had it all up against him, was Reggie. Reggie really underwent a lot of racial horse shit, a lot of, attacks, whether from the media or from other players who decided he was cocky through whatever articles were being, that straw that stirs the drink comment was taken completely out of context, Reggie, to this day, I mean, he's never said Munson can only stir it bad. So like there was a lot of embellishment with that article. And, I'll tell you what, if Steve Jacobson is telling me that, being one of the great writers of the time period, I'm going to have to go with what he said,
Was he Newsday, Jimmy?
He was Newsday.
Okay.
He was Newsday. And it's funny, too, growing up, me and my dad hated him because he never called George Steinbrenner by name. Now, we loved George. We were the Yankee fans who did love George. We loved George. So he would never refer to him as George Steinbrenner. He would refer to him in every article as that man, which was really interesting that he took that kind of stance. But when I got to know him years later and get to sit and talk with him, I realized why he felt that way about Steinbrenner, because he was in the clubhouse all those games, all those years. And he said that Reggie Jackson was treated like shit. And I find that interesting. And you know what? Credit to Reggie for not going out and screaming the woe is me horse shit. Because I think Reggie is comfortable enough, and no surprise, he always was comfortable with himself. He's comfortable enough to rest on his laurels, and his laurels are pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Reggie. I was there when he threw the candy bars on the field, bro.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That's another example of Reggie. If I come to New York, they'll name a candy bar after me. So they name a candy bar after him, and what does he do? He hits a home run. How do you make this crap up? How good can you possibly be?
I mean, we're still talking about it, like 45 years later?
Yep.
Almost 50.
Reggie.
I mean, are we going to be talking about Jacob deGrom?
No.
Except
no.
to,
no.
Tell everybody what a sissy he was.
But what I will say is if he keeps it up, I want to see at least 5 more years of this. If he keeps it up, I can't say with confidence that today's kids will always talk about Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is awesome.
Yes.
Aaron Judge is Derek Jeter with power. As far as his persona, he's classy. He doesn't look for shit. Derek Jeter, by the way, is our Joe DiMaggio. I don't know if you know that, but I figured I would point that out. Because of all the years we've been watching, he is our Joe DiMaggio. He stayed classy. He didn't let any dirt get out because he didn't start any dirt.
And one of the few players that actually, if you think about all these guys that got long-term contracts, look at Pujols. What did he get? $300 million for 10 years?
Right.
How many good seasons did he have?
Right. You could say the same, unfortunately, injuries, but you could say the same about Griffey Jr. in Cincinnati.
Right. But Jeter got a what? I think 10 year, $190 million. He earned every penny of that contract and then some.
Yep.
He's one of the few.
Yeah. Well, Derek Jeter is the exception to the rule, unfortunately. Right. We've seen other great ball players over the years. I think of Paul Molitor, another class act, another great professional, another great hitter, a situational hitter. Who's the greatest average hitter of our lifetime? To me, there's 3 guys.
Who else? And Carew.
If I want a base hit, I want to get Tony Gwynn up there, Wade Boggs, or Rod Carew. You just said it. They were the 3
hitting machines.
They were educated. They were the smartest pitcher in our lifetime is Greg Maddux, the smartest.
It was like watching a surgeon perform an operation.
Yep.
When he pitched, the way he worked the corners. I mean, unbelievable. Yep. The guy's fastball couldn't break glass. I mean,
right.
But he was an artist. It was art watching him pitch. And
when they asked him to explain his dominance after his career was over, he basically broke down the physics of it and explained how he goes about pinpointing corners, changing speeds. He said, when you do that, if you can do that at will, the human being as a hitter is helpless unless your name is Tony fucking Gwynn.
Right.
That was his answer.
Yeah, I mean, who could get Tony Gwynn out?
Apparently nobody. Because even in '98, when we steamrolled them in the World Series, Gwynn showed up.
Another guy, never heard a bad word about the guy. Always, flew under the radar, no scandals, just wanted to play baseball.
Right.
And I bet he probably didn't make I'm sure he got paid well, but nothing compared to what these guys are getting to get today.
Nothing at all. They once asked Joe DiMaggio years later when free agency was, coming to fruition, Joe, what do you think you would be worth today? And his answer was great. He said, well, I would look Mr. Steinbrenner in the eye and put my hand out and say, hi, partner.
Hello. Exactly.
Because basically he'd own the team. That's the difference, Ted Williams. What would Ted Williams be
Oh
worth
my
today?
God, Ted Williams. Jeez.
Are you kidding me?
Even Musial. I mean, not
Right.
that Musial was underrated, but I mean, the guy was phenomenal for how
He
many
was.
years?
But you know what? A lot of wrongs need to be righted. And here we sit. We start off this show about how they're going to integrate the Negro League records, and you're going to tell me that we're going to forget about Dick Allen. We're going to forget about baseball players like Keith Hernandez. That's not a Hall of Famer. How come Don Mattingly basically has the same numbers as Kirby Puckett and he's not in?
And he's got, 9 Gold Gloves, Mattingly?
Come on.
311 average, 9 Gold Gloves.
Why don't we get Pete Rose back in there and fix all these other potholes before we jump ahead and start appeasing people? And who are we appeasing, by the way? A couple of loudmouths? Is that what's going on here?
You can't fix something. You can't fix a wrong by doing another wrong. And that's what they're doing, in my opinion.
Couldn't say it better myself, Benny. That's why you're the player. Perfectly said.
So, well, I guess we got to go home now, my friend.
All right.
Been rambling on here for about an hour and a half.
Very good.
So that's the third episode. I only got 27 more, and I'll tie my mother to the car for longevity. That's before your time, isn't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, it is, but I am aware of that show. Are you sure you want to already throw out parallels to My Mother the Car?
All right.
Oh my God.
Any idea who's the star of that show?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was Bill Bixby.
No, actually, it was Jerry Van Dyke.
It was?
Yes.
Wait a minute. What was Bill Bixby in? My Favorite Martian?
My Favorite Martian with Ray Walston. Yeah.
I knew I had one of those bombs.
Who later became Mr. Han on Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay.
On dope?
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. Well, Jimmy, I can't thank you and Rip. I'm so sorry, Rip. We lost you there. Just spending time and shooting a breeze. I mean, I could do this till next week. But I did want to let everybody know some of the great goings on at our channel, Monty and the Pharaoh channel. Tuesday night on Dan and Benny in the Ring, we have wrestling historian and author Nikita Brezhnikov, and we're going to be chatting about the title reign of Bob Backlund.
Okay,
always a good topic, right? Okay. And then next Tuesday night, you guys have the one and only Wendy Richter. I'm going to go to Firehouse Subs, get a smokehouse brisket, foot long. Then I'm going to go to Winn-Dixie. Do you have Winn-Dixie?
We have a Winn-Dixie. We have a Winn-Dixie. Yes, we do.
So I'm going to get a 6-pack of Peroni.
Okay.
I'm going to be all settled in because I will not miss that thing for anything. That's going to be phenomenal. You talk about
that's Thursday the 20th, correct?
Yeah, a week from yesterday. Yes, sir.
There we go. Wendy Richter. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, you don't have everything that we have today. WrestleMania got put in motion.
Oh God, no.
Thanks to Lauper and Richter and Moolah and of course Hogan and T and Piper and everything like that. But man, without Wendy Richter, everything could be different. This is a huge guest for Monty and the Pharaoh. Can't wait.
Oh, there's Dan Sebastiano. I'm blaming you anyway, Phil. Somehow the chat is leaking through here, and then the following Monday night, which is June 24th, the next episode of True Crime with the Bad Girl and the Playa. Coincidentally, my 69th birthday, believe it or not. So we'll be having a combination of hideous jokes about my age. And I don't know if, Jimmy, have you heard about the Karen Reed trial?
No, what's that? I don't know about that.
So she was a college professor living, I guess, in the Boston area. Phil could probably give us the specific town. Was living with a man named John O'Keefe. I think I got that. And Teddy Ball Game. Well, all Phil's chats are showing up here, but they went out and they went to a bar, then they went to another bar, and then they went to a couple of the people at the bar were also fellow cops who invited them to. His name was Brian Albert. They invited Karen Reed and O'Keefe to their house for an after party. She didn't want to go, but she supposedly dropped him off. The next morning, he's dead on the front lawn. There was a blizzard that night. He's frostbitten and buried under snow. And she's being charged for murder. The defense lawyer, his name is Alan Jackson, I think. No relation to the country singer. Guys are watching. Guys, the next F. Lee Bailey and Jose Baez dismantling the state of Massachusetts. There's so much conflicting evidence, and I've been watching this thing every day for weeks now. So it's going to be me, Brittany, and Phil.
Okay.
And Dangerous.
It sounds messy. It sounds very messy.
It's a really. I mean, I think next week the defense starts, and I'm going to be shocked if she gets convicted. But we'll find out. But it is if you start watching it, you can't stop. Just ask Phil. Yeah, we've been fixated on it, and so there you have it, folks. And I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this great channel, and keep your eye out for the next episode of the Playa Unplugged. Unless I get pulled, you never know, right?
Imagine the player getting pulled. You don't unless you pull yourself.
I'd rather get pulled by someone than pull myself. Sure. And
okay.
So for Jimmy and Rip Rogers, this is the Playa. The Playa's out, but don't despair. I'll be back. There is no doubt. Good night, folks.
Later.
And we're out.